Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Berkley Romance podcast. My name is Bree, and today is a total dream. I have author Courtney Cole joining me today, and I am such a fan. Courtney, thank you so much for joining me. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Bree. Well, thank you for having me very much. Well, I'm a writer, as you know. I grew up on a farm in Kansas, and to this day, I think I've tried to get rid of my Midwestern accent, but I think I still have it sometimes. My family makes fun of me a lot. Um, I live in Florida now, where I write underneath the palm trees, and we're having a storm. So if there's any noise, I apologize.
It's Florida ambiance at its best. I
Exactly.
love that you're a Midwestern girl. I'm originally from Missouri. So, like, are you on like the other side of Kansas or what?
Um, Actually, the very, very center, outside of a actually, I'm from a little tiny town called Nickerson, and it's right next to
Oh.
Hutchinson, which is like the nearest city of any kind of size. And so, it's like the home of the Cosmosphere, which is actually pretty cool. And you wouldn't think it's in the middle of Kansas, but that's like their one thing. But I used to go to Missouri on like vacations when I was little because we didn't have like a lot of money, so we never did like really really cool things. But we went to like St. Louis, for the arch or stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you go back
Yeah,
to Kansas often or no? Like
not
my
really.
aunt used to live in West Palm Beach and she was just like, it
Yeah.
takes forever to drive out of Florida. So she did not
Oh,
go home that much.
it does. And I literally have to drive everywhere nowadays because I have a Great Dane and I don't like check her into the airplane or anything. So she rides with me and she's a really good traveler. But yeah, it's like it's far from here. I don't even know how far it would be from here. Probably at least like 40 hours or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun seeing Midwestern girls break out and live somewhere else.
Yes, like I was speaking at my high school a few years ago, my where I went, and that's the thing, like you never think that something could happen to you like that. And but I just was like it can always, like just go after your dream and it doesn't matter, where you're from. You can actually do it. And so that was really cool. Just to hear them talking about it too.
If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Oh boy. A warning label. Fragile like a bomb, I guess. I don't know. Fragile like a bomb, I would
I love it.
say.
Who is one of your most read authors?
Who do I read the most?
Yeah, who's one of your most
Um,
read authors?
well, you know what? I love, love, love Julie Garwood. She is one of the reasons why I love reading so much. I used to sneak her out of my out of my grandma's bookshelves, because she wrote Scottish romances back in the day, and so I literally, until the day she died, not too long ago, she was definitely an auto buy for me.
What is a movie or television show you'll never stop watching?
Supernatural. I love me some Jensen Ackles. Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good
Oh
one.
man.
Yes. I've been wanting to. I think the first time I sat and watched it, I think I made it like 5 or 6 seasons into it.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to like start it over and like rewatch it and just finally like binge through the whole thing. But I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ready. It's just one of those shows that I'm like, am I ready for the ending? Am I ready for it to come to an end?
No, absolutely not. And then I literally hated the last episode, which it wasn't their fault really because it was during the pandemic. But so yeah, I sometimes I will like rewatch it. I do it like a yearly rewatch. I'll watch it up until like 3 episodes from the end, and then I'm done. Those are dead too.
Love it. I love it. Well, I think you kind of alluded to this already, but like your romance origin story, how did you become both a romance reader and writer?
Well, like you said, like that is, I snuck romance novels out of my grandma's. I grew up on my grandparents' farm, and it was really hot in Kansas, as you know, as a Missouri girl. So
Mhm.
it's very hot and there's nothing to do in the summer. And so I used to sneak romance novels out of my grandma's bookshelves and I would go up into the barn loft where it was really hot. And you know what? Now that I think about it, that wasn't too smart to like climb up into the heat because it felt even hotter up there because of all the hay bales. But that's where I would go and that's where I would read those romance novels. And I just fell in love with that. I don't know, that falling in love feeling, whatever that is. Like when you see it in the readers or in the characters over and over, you watch them fall in love, and I just fell in love with that feeling, and so that's what I like to recreate.
Yeah, did your grandma ever figure it out?
Mm, if she did, she didn't say anything, and I think I told her much later in life that yes, I had definitely because she used to tell me, "Do not read those books. These books are," because I was a voracious reader, and she should have known better, really, because I would read anything that I got my hands on, and so that was really, you know what, that's on her for tempting me in that way. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Soon as you make
I
it
told her
forbidden, it's almost like fair game.
that's right. It's really her fault if you think about it. So no, yeah, no, I told her later in life and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, honey, I can't believe you did it," whatever. But no. But honestly, it's a good thing because it did make me fall in love with that with reading that kind of feeling. And then it kind of set me up for a career. So, she shouldn't be too upset.
Yeah, so how did the writing happen? Like, have you always been a writer or what?
Yes, I've always been a writer in my soul. Like when I was really little, I read Where the Red Fern Grows and I hated the ending. And so I was up there in that barn loft I was just talking about, and I was just sobbing at the ending. It was the first book that had ever touched me that way. And I rewrote the end. It bothered me so much for days that finally I thought, you know what? I'm gonna rewrite the ending. And that was my, I guess you can call it fan fiction, because I rewrote the ending of that into a way where the dogs didn't die, and that's when it kind of was like recognizing that you have this power to change this. And so that was really intoxicating as a little kid, and I just started doing it more and more, and then I thought, I'm actually kind of good at this, and it just went on from there. I wrote like every other girl does. I wrote poetry in high school, and I just loved it. I love the way that you can really evoke emotions with your words, and that was really intoxicating to me. So yeah, I that's when I started that.
I feel like we need like a yearly, you know how they come out with like those best short stories of 2023? We need like a high school girl poetry anthology that comes out yearly. I would love because I was the
That's
same. Like I feel like every girl my
yeah,
age, I'm 37, like we all had composition books of like just the most
yes,
angsty teenage
yes.
girl poetry.
So embarrassing. I would literally die if I saw what I wrote back then. Like it's lost now. Like I don't
Same.
remember. It was probably thrown out or whatever. Thank God, because I can't imagine what it would have been like. Oh, how embarrassing. The angst, the angst.
Yes, everything's all about, it's just heartbreak at its finest.
It really is. It really is.
I do a lot of digging on, like, fiction database because I was like, I know I came to you because of your holiday romance, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, her first book published in 2011." So is that correct? Around 2011?
Yeah. Yep.
So tell me, so you rewrote the ending, you're doing fan fiction as a teenage girl and writing poetry. Tell me your publishing journey. Like, when did you decide, like, I really wanna pursue this, I wanna be serious about it?
I was actually well, when I was in high school, I remember my mom telling me, writers don't make any money. And so I went on and got my business degree and I worked in marketing for years and I just kind of dabbled like I had been doing, I would write short stories or whatever, and I would write my daughter was little at that time, and I would just write her story at nighttime when she would go to bed, I'd put her to bed and I'd read her a story. Well, she started wanting me to tell her my own stories. And so I would write little stories for her and read them every night. And I don't know why, but after my dad died really suddenly during that time. And for some reason, after that, I just felt the urge to write a book about a guardian angel, which I did. And I don't know, I just, that was picked up by a small press. I mean, to be honest, it wasn't good enough to be like somebody's big book, but I didn't know that at the time. Our first work is always, we think it's amazing, and then you go back later and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh. Well, I still love the story, of course, but it was picked up by a small press, and then I wrote. um, a mythological romance or paranormal romance with mythology, a series right before that. And that was also small press. And then I had the idea for my breakout book called If You Stay. And that was actually one of the first new adult books out there on the market. And just because of the timing of it, new adult, those kind of angsty stories that we were just talking about, teenagers, I had queried so many publishers with this idea for a really troubled male character. His name's Pax. That was how he was struggling with drug addiction, and then I wanted him to have this character arc where he came through that and he fell in love and everything. And I kept hearing back there was no genre for this. There's no age bracket for this. You know, it wasn't young adult, but yet it wasn't women's fiction either. So it got rejected about 100 times, and I finally did it as an indie, and it exploded. It hit like the top of Amazon within a week. It hit the New York Times for like 10 weeks in a row, and then the publishers and agents started calling, and so
Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
There's
and
no age bracket for this. I'll
yeah,
prove you wrong. Oh my gosh.
right. And so I mean, like, I don't know whatever made them think that there was no age bracket for, 20 somethings, right? And so now
Yeah.
it seems silly, but back then there wasn't new adult. There wasn't a new adult genre. So that book hit big, and then I um, got an agent that way, and I got a 3-book deal out of that, and never looked back. But that's how it happened. I took matters into my own hands.
Oh my gosh. So you've kind of touched on my next question already, but like as you're entering the world of publishing, like what did it look like to you? What did it feel like? Like cuz looking at your bibliography from back in the day to now, it's very different, and I was like, was Courtney writing like I know that some people don't like the term romantasy, but like I'm like, was Courtney writing that before it became like what it is now, before it kind of became a thing? Like, what
Mhm.
did the world you were entering into, romance publishing wise, like, what did it look like to you? Like, what did it feel like?
Well, it was actually at that time, it was pretty exciting because the whole indie revolution thing was just happening where you could literally write your own book, and you didn't have to have anybody say, no, that's not a good idea, or there's no genre for that. And so at the time, it was really exciting because I have this really entrepreneurial spirit, kind of. I don't know why. I was just born with it. And so if somebody tells me no, I'm going to do it myself, right? And there's a lot of people out there like that. And so it was like the gates were opened for the first time because the publishers, kind of guard those gates.
So you came into it when what was indie already a big thing, or was it like people were slowly figuring out like we was the doors to indie opening like at that
Did
time?
you Well, do you remember Amanda Hawking?
I
She was
do.
huge in the indie world. She was huge because she wrote, I forget now, was I think fantasy or paranormal. And she priced things at 99 cents, which nobody had ever been able to do because, nobody was really self published at that time in a really big way. And I think that people were just the word about indie authors, and it made it seem kind of cool, like indie music or whatever, and people wanted to support that. And so it really became the kind of cool thing to do with writers, and readers really kind of like to support that too. And then, now it's progressed to there's so much of it out there or whatever, but it still does. And you really do, like, if somebody's listening to this right now, just know that things are very different now than they were then. When I went the indie route and broke out, it was a lot easier to do then than now, because now the market is really flooded with indie authors. So um, I just want to make sure that somebody doesn't hear that and think, oh, I can become an instant whatever. It's not the same now, but you can still do it. You can still do it.
Yeah.
If you write a great story, and what it boils down to is if you write a great story and the audience can really relate to it, it's going to do well. That's what readers just want to read. So be authentic.
What did the like I can imagine, I'm trying to think, like 2011 was not that long ago, but it is kind of long ago,
It is.
and I can't
Yeah.
imagine like we didn't have, Instagram. I don't know if Instagram was around. I can't even think back that far, but like what did the marketing for yourself look like if you were going that route at that time? Like, how did you get your
Well,
books out there?
word of mouth on blog sites. That's how we did it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, we became friends because blogging was really a thing right at that time too, I remember. So book blogging really was kind of ramping up into what it is now. Well, now it's like what do they call the book talk, book talks. That's
Mhm.
huge right
Yeah.
now. But and blogs are still important for sure, but they were the pretty much be all end all for indie authors back in the day. I mean, you would arrange blog tours and you would get on as many blogs as possible just to get your name out there, because a lot of people, I worked in marketing, so I did have a background in knowing kind of what to do. I'd never promoted myself before, and so that was new, and that's something that you really do have to get past. If you feel uncomfortable with promoting yourself, you have to get past that because that's a whole lot of being an indie is being able to do. Well, actually, any author. I mean, actually,
Yeah.
even if you're traditionally published, you really do a lot of your own PR work too. So that would be something I would also say to authors or to writers listening to this is that you always will need to market your own things, and so you need to get comfortable with that. But yeah, back then the blogs were what we did.
Having the marketing background, is there no and knowing, like, blogs, I think, are still important, but the world of, like, promotion has
Hmm.
changed. Like, is there
Hmm.
anything that maybe new aspiring authors don't know they should be doing that you would say, like, "Hey, if you're not doing this, maybe give this a try?"
Ugh, that's I wouldn't even want to begin because like you said, I mean things change so quickly. Like I
Yeah.
think that the top marketing thing that you have to really pay attention to is where do your readers go? Do they hang out on TikTok? Do they hang out on Instagram? Do they hang out on Goodreads? Like you need to figure out where they go and then be there. That's the best thing I can advise
Oh, that is
anybody.
so smart. I've never heard it. I don't think I've ever heard it, like, articulated like that. Like, I see so many authors obviously, like, promoting themselves, but I've never looked at it from the lens of, like, okay, you're there because your readers are there, you know? Like, you'll see some
Yes.
authors that, that I think finally realize, like, my readers aren't in this space. They're not on TikTok, you know? So it's like, well, you gotta pivot and you gotta go somewhere else. It's gotta be tough.
Exactly, and I think, I mean, just to piggyback on that, the the other step to that is knowing who your reader is. Who is going to be your demographic? If you're writing young adult fiction, you want to be where those 13 to 17-year-olds are, like so you sometimes see authors that are everywhere, and that's limiting their resources really because you can't be everywhere and do it well, and so you really need to figure out where your particular readers go, who reads your books, where they're going to be, and that's where you need to be too.
Well, you made a pivot into writing holiday romance. I still think about The Christmas Dress to this day. I love that book so much. What inspired the shift into writing holiday
No,
romances?
that was kind of interesting actually because that was something I had never considered for myself even though I love Christmas. Like I decorate on like November 1st. I mean, I love Christmas, but I was approached. The editor for that book actually thought of that idea for the Christmas dress. She thought of the idea for an enchanted dress. And she came to my agent, and my agent came to me, and she said, they love your voice, even though you've never written Christmas before. What do you think you could do with this idea? And I was just so flattered because I'd never heard of that even happening, and so I sat down, like I said, well, Kevin, you know that I don't write Christmas though. And I'm like, I don't even know what's out there right now or, what people are liking. And she's like, yeah, but they like your voice. So I sat down and I fleshed out her idea because, all she really said was she had this idea for this enchanted dress that could fit anybody, and it could she wanted to accidentally fall into the reader's or the main character's hands. That's all I had to
Mhm.
go on. And so I created the whole rest of the story. And I was really nervous the whole time because, if you take somebody else's idea, you want to do it justice, So, but that is exactly how I pivoted to Christmas. I mean, it's not a full pivot. I still am writing regular fiction too. But it made sense to continue because I do love Christmas and I love swoony things and I love magic. And so it just made sense.
Oh, that book is just so good. One thing that I have noticed is that so the 3 holiday romances I've read by you now,
Mhm.
you write one of my favorite things to see in just novels, period, and I feel like I don't see it much in romance, so, like, I really look forward to your holiday romances when they come out, is, like, you always do something with time. So, like, in The Christmas Dress, the heroine, she finds the dress, and there's, like, some time elements in that story that I
Mhm.
loved. I loved the, like, speakeasiness, all the setting was fabulous. In Home for Christmas, the heroine literally time traveled. I loved that she was, like, hanging out with her grandmother as a young
Yes.
woman. I love that book. And then in A Wish for Christmas, it's almost like you stopped time for our couple who's like a marriage in trouble almost situation, and then you, like, restarted time for them. Is that something that you are aware of? Is it just kind of happening? Like, talk about the writing time element because
You know
I
what?
love it.
That is so that is so insightful that you would even focus in on that because I hadn't. I didn't even realize
Really?
that about myself. Yeah. But if I look back at my first series, the mythological paranormal, it was time travel. It started off back going back to Cleopatra to be her handmaiden, and so I guess I'm just fascinated by that. But it's so weird because I've never thought about that before. But I
Yes, I
don't know.
love it.
I just love the idea of second chances or being
Mhm.
able or having a redo or being able to change something, I don't know why. I guess I find it fascinating.
Well, can you share with everybody, like, your elevator pitch for A Wish for Christmas? Like, how would you describe it to anyone that hasn't read it yet?
I would just say that A Wish for Christmas is about a couple they're unhappily married and they make a wish on a magic snow globe that they had never gotten married. They'd never met. And this book is about that and what it's like if they hadn't and if true love is actually just a thing that can't be rewritten.
So, how did the story for these 2 come to you? Because again, I love the time element, I love what you did with that, and I love, like, it's not even like when you first meet them, it's not like they hate each other. You can just tell that they are a couple that are slowly drifting apart. So
Yeah,
how did it come to you?
well, that's the actual reason why is because I was thinking one day about how when you're married for a long time, and you said you're 37, I'm 48, and I've been married for over 20 years. And so I think that every couple who's been married that long, there are times when you do start drifting apart and you do have to come back together, remember why you're together in the first place. What do I love about this person? Because when you're together for so long, like even sometimes the way they chew gets on your nerves, right? And everybody's busy and social media, and you're always bombarded with everything. So we get short tempered. And I think that I just think everybody needs to remember that we love that person for a reason, and sometimes the everyday stuff can just drown out, the real things that you love. And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, what would happen if they could actually go back in time and redo things? Would they still love each other? And they did. So
Yeah.
I think that most of us, I think even though we get annoyed with our spouses sometimes, most of us would probably be the same.
Did you have a favorite moment writing-wise for the book?
I loved all the scenes with Elliot, the dog.
Yeah.
And he plays I actually based him on I have this English Mastiff that we adopted a few years ago. And he had the biggest personality of any animal I have ever had. And so I just had to put him into this book. And so, really, I love every season. I love at the beginning when they're trying to get him on a private plane and up the stairs, like, because I could just envision my Atticus, who we called our house donkey. I could just imagine Donkey trying to get him in. Oh my gosh! So, I love every scene that Elliot's in.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I loved when she can't get him on the plane. And so
Yeah,
then he's like, Well, you can just there were these moments where it was like, they kind of feel like they know each other,
Yes.
I loved it. I don't wanna spoil it. It's like, it's so tricky, but there were these little
Well,
moments, once you kind of restarted time for them in this way, it's like,
yeah,
he feels like, "I know her," like, he's comfortable enough to do that for
yeah.
her.
Yes, it's almost like deja vu or, they just underneath the surface, they feel very familiar with each other and they don't even know it.
Well, is there anything that you're working on now that you're able to talk about?
Not really that I can talk about, but I'm always working on new books, and so we'll have to touch back on that on a different date.
Yes. I mean, you do the holidays so well. Is there another holiday that you're like, "I would like to do this if I, give
Well,
this one a try?"
I love Halloween. Halloween was always my favorite thing until I got a little bit older, but I really couldn't write a Halloween book because that would totally trash my whole brand. So, I wasn't that smart. Well, even though I worked in marketing when I first started off, I just wrote anything I felt like. I didn't
Yeah.
really stick to one genre. And I think that it's really helpful for readers when, they know what they're getting when you get, like Stephen King, you know what you're getting. I can't write Halloween or my readers would be so confused.
Right. Like, "Courtney, what is going on?"
Yeah, like, why can't you get your stuff figured out? Like, pick something, pick a topic.
Well, where can everybody keep up with you online?
Well, my website is courtneycolecreates.com,
I
and that's
love your website, by the way. I love your bio and all of that. I'm like, "Oh,
oh,
she
thank
seems so
you.
fun."
Thank you so much. We're actually redoing it right now, and so the updated version will be up pretty soon. But that's where you can find everywhere that I am. Like I try to mix it up and be different places, but that's where you can find where I am.
Well, I will have that linked down below. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me and for writing amazing books. I'm such a fan.
Thank you, Bree. You're so sweet, and thank you for having me here too. Merry Christmas, everyone.